Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Yo soy el señor Eduardo y yo soy tu profesor de español.
Y yo soy la señorita Erika y yo soy tu profesora de español.
Muy bien, ¿cómo estás, Erika?
Estoy bien, gracias. ¿Qué tal estás?
Yo estoy muy bien hoy. Estoy feliz porque tenemos esta clase de español. I'm happy because we have this Spanish class for nuestros amigos de Brookline, our friends from Brookline. Bueno, señorita Erika, ¿qué vamos a aprender hoy? ¿Qué vamos a aprender hoy?
Sí, vamos a aprender el abecedario o el alfabeto. Today we're going to learn the alphabet in Spanish.
Muy bien. Yo recuerdo que aprendimos las vocales. Las vocales en inglés son the vowels A, E, I, O, U. ¿Sí?
A, E, I, O, U.
Muy bien. Una vez más, por favor.
A, E, I, O, U. So these are
Muy
the sounds
bien.
we know so far.
5 vocales. Now, A, E, I, O, U. Do they make any other sounds?
Not really. That's the thing that's easier to do about Spanish than English is once you learn the alphabet letters, you learn the sound. That's how they will always sound when you read them.
Okay, so muy bien. So everybody, thank you very much for watching our Adult Spanish for Brookline Interactive group. We're super excited. My name is Señor Eduardo
I'm Señorita Erika.
and we are your teachers on this journey of learning the Spanish language. This video series for you all is a beginner's series. Now, what we're trying to do is we know that some of you may not watch it every week or on repeat. So we're going to be introducing concepts on a regular basis. So today's concept is the alphabet. Now, when you learn a language, we do understand that some things are going to build upon other things, but we're going to try our best to have you guys memorize a lot of things, learn to practice with them, and use them. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we're also using the Rola Languages Level 1 book. And we'll be sharing parts of that with you here, but you can go to our website because there's a lot of free resources both on our YouTube page where we have more videos, but also on our website at rolalang.com. Learning a language, you need resources, and there's a lot of things out there for you all to learn. But vamos a comenzar con el alfabeto. El alfabeto. Okay, muy bien. So, señorita Erika, I have here a picture of the English language alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between this alphabet and the Spanish alphabet?
Mm-hmm. So between the Spanish and English alphabets, there's only one difference, and that Spanish has one more letter than the English alphabet does, and that letter is Enya. So as we practiced in our previous lesson. So we have the letter N, which is like a simple N, but in addition to that, we also have the letter Enya, which you can see on screen here, is the N with a squiggly on top, or the squiggly, the formal name for that is the tilde. And so this makes the sound Enye with a Y sound in it, in addition to the N sound. So this one is the only unique letter that we only have in Spanish that doesn't happen in English.
Okay, so very good. So el alfabeto. So we already know the 5 vowel sounds that we practice. A, E, I, O, U, right? A, E, I, O, U. So back to the alphabet. Now, what I'm showing you now is the English alphabet. And Señorita Erika said we have to add one more, which is the Enye with the tilde on top, the squiggly on top. Now, my question to you, Señorita Erika, is I know some of our students have learned Spanish a few years ago or a long time ago, and they might remember some fun sounds or fun letters like che and eye and erre. Why aren't they here in this one?
Good question. So the Spanish alphabet has kind of changed and modernized over time. So if you learned Spanish in the past few years, you might have learned a slightly different alphabet that had 3 other additional letters in addition to the Enya. So Enya is a constant, that one's still there. But in the previous version of the Spanish alphabet, there were 3 other extra letters that we don't have in the modern current Spanish alphabet. So those were, as Senor Eduardo said, there was a letter che, which was a combination of se and h. There was also an ely or eye, which was a double L. And then there was a doble R or a double R, which in these, as I said, these letters are no longer in the modern Spanish alphabet because the people who are in charge of managing the Spanish language decided that they wanted to simplify the alphabet. So they removed these extra letters. So in our modern alphabet, the only additional letter we should have is ñ. But if you see some older Spanish texts, or maybe you remember learning Spanish in high school or at another time, then you may have learned these extra letters at that time.
Okay, so to summarize, che, ella, and r are removed officially from the Spanish language. Now, I was teaching some songs to some children who were learning Spanish with me, and the song actually had them. And so they were like, what's going on? So if they're out there, you know, accept it with the song or the thing that you're learning. But remember, che is actually ch, ella is ll, and then R is RR or doble R, right? So it's kind of was repetitive in sort of, but even though it made the language alphabet look kind of cool, huh? Muy bien. So the only one we have left is the ñ, which is this one. And it's after the N sound. So when you're learning the alphabet, I say close your eyes and visualize the English alphabet, which you've learned since you were a child, and start with that, right? And so you just have to learn that plus one letter, which is the ñ, which is after N. Now, we've already practiced the vowels, so a, e, I, o, u. And another thing I tell all of my students is that there is a common sound that repeats over and over again. So if you had to guess a sound or guess a letter because you've forgotten, the sound that you might be hearing when we go through this is eh. So Erika, eh. Not a. So my name is Eduardo or Ed in English. So eh. Muy bien. So leave your mouth open. So we're going to start with these here. I'm not going to show you the pronunciation guide just yet, but I am going to have you try to repeat what I'm repeating here, right? Work on your comprehension, right? Between what Miss Erika and I are saying. So, okay. So numero uno, I'll have my cursor here. So uno, we have A. B. C. D. E. F. This one's different. Make a note. He. Also different. H. I. J. K. L. M. N. New one, not here. Enya. O. P. Q. R. S. T. U. V. W. And we'll talk a little bit about these here in a second. X. Y. And Z. Muy bien. So I'm going to say it very quickly one more time, and then you're going to just try to repeat after me. Muy rápido. Okay. Oops. Muy bien. No. Oh, Erika, ¿cómo estás? Oops. No, still there. Bueno, I'll share with you. Here we go. Aquí vamos. Follow Miss Erika. Go for it, Erika.
Okay. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Ny, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Okay, muy bien, muy bien. So that was the Spanish alphabet. Perfecto.
And I have
Okay.
a tip to share for those of you who are learning the R, which can be a little bit challenging for those of you who are native English speakers. So if you're not sure exactly how to make this sound, first of all, don't panic. I know it's something that people say they try on the first time, they can't get it, they get very frustrated. So try to be patient with yourself when you're trying to work on that R. So if you want to know exactly how do you do this, so what is happening is that your tongue is bouncing up and down off the top of your mouth very fast, and that's what makes the R sound. So if you want to try to do it just very slowly at first and work on making it faster, that's how you'll get better. And I know maybe it feels a little silly. You might think you look a little funny doing it, but that's really the best way to practice. And another tip that I give, which I usually give to my students who are kids, but it's also effective for adults too, is if you know how to make the sound when a cat purrs. That's another good thing that you can use as a guide to help you to try to learn that sound in Spanish, because sometimes you might not think of that as a letter sound like the, but that is the same sound. You just have to put some voice behind it to make the R in Spanish. So if you want to try either of those tips, if you know how to make the cat purr sound, or if you want to practice just try to make your tongue go first slowly up at the top of your mouth and then make it go faster and faster and faster, and that will make the sound. But yes, be patient with yourself.
Okay.
It
Yes.
takes a lot of practice.
And when we start learning words, I'm going to give you guys another trick. But basically, when you say D, 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 your tongue is actually hitting the top of your mouth. And it's just then you're using that motion to then make the vibration. And there's some tricks, some pronunciation tricks for you to try to practice a little bit using that. Okay, muy bien. So now we're going to break down the alphabet. Don't worry, we're going to practice it a lot. Okay, and as always, we're going to be sharing our screen. This is the Level 1 Spanish Rola book, was designed for adults, and there are some exercises, so you can always hit pause and try to do the exercises, or find other resources out there. There's a lot of stuff that you guys can find for free. Okay, so everybody, the alphabet. We're going to break some things down here for you. So in this gray box, we have all of the letters, even the ones that we took out on purpose. So we want you guys to understand a little bit about the history of it. They were there before, they're no longer there. It's the English alphabet plus Enya. Start with that. And we're going to do several exercises today, just focusing on the alphabet. Now, you may not be singing the alphabet down the street, but you might need to spell your name if you go to a foreign country. But it's also going to help you, one, memorize in a second language. It is a different part of your brain when you're memorizing in a second language. And also it's a good exercise to practice different pronunciation sounds that we're teaching you. Okay, so tenemos A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U right there at the top. Now, things to remember. That E sound. So, Señorita Erika, we're going to see if everybody can hear that E sound that's kind of repetitive throughout the alphabet. Okay, so Erika, you're going to start, and I'll tell you when to stop.
Mm-hmm. Okay, starting from the top of the alphabet, we have
A little bit
A,
fast. Mm-hmm.
B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N.
Okay, muy bien, señorita Erika. Gracias. So I hope that all of you at home have heard that sound. So generally, it could be the English letter, like and that is a consonant, and you have the at the end of it, or it's that consonant sound in English that's hugged by the For example, like F, right? The F makes the F sound, so F, or L. L, so it's the L is hugged by the sound. So that's a good way for you, if you forget, to try to remember. Now, a lot of English speakers make this sound as a, and actually there are some pronunciation guides. I've seen them out there in books and different software or apps, learning apps for languages that have ay. That is not how that it's such an easy sound because we have it in English. So to think of Edward, you leave your mouth open and you smile just a little bit. Okay, so some cool things here. Let's see. Let's go to the sounds on this first box on the left side, the letters that are different, that do not follow that little cheat note that I gave you, that little sound. So H, H. Erica, tell me about H and its
So
function.
H, yes, H is a bit of a special letter because it's actually silent. So while the name of the letter is H, when we see an H in a word, we actually will not pronounce it and it will be silent. Like the word hola, like we don't say hola, we say, or hola, we just say hola. So it's whenever you see an H in a word, it's going to be silent.
Okay, muy bien. H. Another cool letter here that's always confused is the he. The he. Tell us a little bit about that one, Señorita Erika. He.
Sure. So the letter is he, but as we see it in a word, we have two different sounds it can make. So that's where, if you look on the right side of the box, you'll see some example combinations of he with other vocales or with other vowels. And so we can basically have two different groups of ways we're going to pronounce this letter. So if it's in front of an a, an o, or an u, it will make a hard g sound. So we have ga, go, gu. Okay, ga, go, gu. And if we have it followed by an e or an e, we'll have a soft h sound like the letter he. So for example, we have the sounds he and he. Okay, so we have two different ways we can pronounce the letter he when we see it in the context of a word. So like ga, go, gu, and he, he.
That's very confusing. Should I worry about that right now, or just remember
I
that?
wouldn't say worry about it too much. I think as you start to build your vocabulary in Spanish, you'll start learning different example words, and then this habit of knowing how to say it will become natural to you.
Awesome. Now, we said earlier that the H is silent and doesn't make the H sound, but we heard the H sound in he, G. And the next word, the J, this letter doesn't sound anything like the letter, but it's Jota. Jota, and I hear the H sound again, Jota. And this is very common with this letter, Jota, J. Señorita Erika?
So exactly. So this is one of the examples of a letter where the name of the letter is going to be a little bit different than the sound it makes. For most of the letters in Spanish, when we learn the name of the letter, it's also the same sound it makes. So for example, like our first letter, we have A. So the letter is called A and the sound it makes is A. But Jota is an example of a letter where the name for the letter and the sound it makes are going to be a little different, because every time we see a Jota in a word, we don't say Jota, we just use the H sound. So for example, we have he as some examples of sounds when we combine the Jota with a or the Jota with e. We had he or he.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, let's go to the right side, Señorita Erika, con N, con N. Those of you who are practicing with us, try to hear that sound that's repetitive here in the alphabet. So vamos, Erika.
So we have N. So you hear it at the start and at the end. N, Eny, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Okay, muy bien, muy bien. So we have some cool things here to go over. So you already know the Enya sound. The Enya is N with a tilde, and that's the only new letter, if you will, to the Spanish alphabet. Now, we have a couple of other cool ones that I like to bring up in class. V and V and W and W. So now, there's some officialness to some of these, but also some regionalities to some of these. So let's look at V. V.
Mm-hmm. So we can pronounce this either as ve or uve. So depending on who you're speaking with, they might say this letter two different ways. So for example, I say ve, but maybe someone else will say uve to say the letter V.
And is there a right or a wrong one?
No, there's no right or wrong, just different.
Okay, and so I generally say W because W is like W, right? Instead of W for W. So it's similar like the V, right? And then the cool thing that my favorite letter is Y. It's Y. Y. What's the official translation, the literal translation of Y?
Y. So the translation
Yep.
of it, so thus the letter by itself would be meaning the word and. So so we just have E. Is and.
Y actually means Greek I.
Okay.
Right? Y. So some history there is that the Y comes from the Greek alphabet. So we identify that by saying Greek I. And sometimes in some countries, especially in South America, to differentiate between the Y and the normal I, we say Y Latina. So we Latin I, which comes from the Latin alphabet. Now, because we're going to talk a little bit about accents and how some of these letters can create some accents that are different. So let's take the Y. So the first word that you learned probably was I, like this person, I, yo. So this is an accent. Now, sometimes people call us at Rola Languages and say, what type of Spanish do you teach? Don't ever ask that question, okay? Because we technically have one Spanish. So many years ago, all the Spanish-speaking countries signed a treaty that we will default to the rules and regulations of the Royal Spanish Academy of Languages, okay? Now, accents, and that's actually different than Portuguese. So Brazilian Portuguese is actually different than continental Portuguese because they never actually signed that agreement saying that they're going to follow the rules. So you actually might have some grammar things that are slightly different from Portugal to Brazil, but they will be able to understand each other, right? So we speak Spanish. And at Rola, we teach what I call international Spanish, and it is an accent neutral Spanish. So imagine this. When you speak Spanish, if you're a native English speaker, you will always have an accent. I'm sorry. So you might have friends from other countries and they speak English perfectly fine, but they might have an accent. You might be able to tell they're from France or from China or from, maybe Mexico, but their English is fine. You understand them. So you will have that accent when you speak a foreign language. Very few people can get rid of it. And so that's okay. So I say this because when you're learning Spanish, my recommendation is not to imitate someone else's accent. So you might hear a Colombian accent or a Puerto Rican accent, and we'll go into that later. Our goal for this video series is to actually get people from different countries so that you can hear the different accents. So I'll give you some examples of things that might happen. So back to that Y. So I say yo. So if you hear me, I'm actually making a slight J sound, jo. It's not very hard, and the roof of my tongue is sort of hitting my tongue is hitting the roof of my mouth, jo. Okay, but for you should know that if you see a Y, say a Y. So if you see yo, say the Y as a Y sound in English. Now, you also accent. So if you're from Argentina, that Y becomes an SH. Sho. And it's very strong. You might hear similar to what I'm saying, like a ZH sound, jo. Okay, I say jo. It's a little softer one. And Erica says,
Yo.
so for you, if you're not a native speaker, if you see a Y, say a Y. Okay, a couple of other fun ones, the B and the V. Depending on not necessarily the country, it's usually whether you're from like the countryside or rural part communities or the cities, is you might interchange the B and the V. So let's take the word vaca. I'm going to go ahead and type it here for you guys. This means, what is vaca? ¿Qué significa vaca, Erika?
Vaca is cow.
Okay, vaca. So some people, and again, it's not country specific, it's generally within a country, where what part of the country you're from, you might hear vaca, vaca, a B sound. Or you should say, if you see a V, say a V. Vaca, vaca, right? Now, there's a way to differentiate this in some countries. You might see B larga and B corta. Larga means long and corta means short. So B larga is long, that's a B sound, and B corta is a little V. It's a short V. So B larga, B corta. And then you've already learned about Y and Y latina, right? So Y. So muy bien. So that's kind of our pronunciation. And then Eric and I are going to do a whole series on R and words with R, because that's something that people stress about, but there's no reason to actually stress about that. So to finish, Señorita Erika is going to say the alphabet una vez más, and then we're going to finish.
Okay, muy bien. Y por favor, repiten después de mí. So please repeat it after me. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, Eny, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
Muy bien. Muchísimas gracias, señorita Erika. Perfecto. So, hoy aprendimos el alfabeto, and the tip here is the alfabeto. El alfabeto is the English alphabet plus Enya.
Eny.
Muy bien. We learned that che, elie, and R have been removed from the Spanish language. I'm sorry. And the only one that remains is Enya. We learned that sometimes there are words like letters like B and V, or that are pronounced slightly different, and that creates the accent. And then at Rola, what you're learning here is that you're learning international Spanish. It's accent neutral, okay? And you shouldn't ask somebody, what type of Spanish do you speak? That's not a nice or cool thing to say, because it's one Spanish and we have accents. Muy bien. Señorita Erika, muchísimas gracias.
De nada.
Muy bien. Estudian mucho. Study hard. Adiós.